Look at the difference between that and that. As you know, I love camcorders, but I like the little ones. I like the little consumer ones. So every now and then I have a weak moment and I buy these big ones because I think surely they must be better. They're so big looking. They must be like the quality of the picture must be so much better. Look at the big lens on the front. But anyway, I'm going to show you what everything looks like here. The reason these things are so huge, until now, was so they could run all day without overheating, and you know they're just made more for all-day professional use, whereas the little ones are more for consumer stuff. But lately, I mean, I've been using the A7R5 in 8K for over an hour, and it runs no problem. You might say, well, Marcus, you using 8K? Yeah, when I do a kitchen video, I have it up high looking down at the whole countertop, and I like to zoom in on the little areas that she's working. That's the only time I use anything over 1080. But yeah, I run 8K for over an hour, no problem. It doesn't overheat. And if it was 4K, I'm sure I could run it for hours and hours. So these things are not really that necessary anymore for getting high quality for something that can run all day. And please don't say, yeah, but they have XLR inputs. XLR is from the Stone Age. Unless you're doing 100-foot cable runs, you don't need it. I mean, what professionals use nowadays is here's a $1,000 pocket professional recorder. It's the Zaxcom ZFR 400. It uses a $800 lavalier microphone. Look at the tiny little cable. Look at the tiny little connector. This is a Limo 3. Electrosonics uses a TAF4. That's another $1,000 recorder. The quality of this is so much better than these. No camcorder has really good preamps compared to a professional recorder. So don't tell me it's because these are more professional because of XLR. And even if you're using a shotgun mic, I mean, unless the cable is more than 5 feet long, you don't need XLR. So that's not a reason to get these things. Yeah, they run all day, but so do the new cameras like this. Now here's a couple I just got just to play with, to compare with the other ones that I like. Now these have 1-inch sensors. That's another reason you're going to go, oh yeah, but they have a 1-inch sensor. So does this one. Look at the size difference between the two. The quality that you get from this looks so much better than these. This is a Panasonic X1. This is a JVC GY-HC500. It has 10-bit 422 ProRes. It can shoot on an internal SSD, but it's got so many crappy features too. These are $3,000 a piece, these cameras. The LCD screen sucks. It's horrible on any of these things. This one's kind of cool. You pull this out and turn it. That's kind of cool. And it slides in. These things are huge. I saw pictures of these. I didn't think they were going to be this big. When I got them in the mail, I go, my God, these things are huge. And they're heavy. Now compare these with, are you ready for this? Compare those with these. Look at the difference between that and that. These are the ones I like. All right, these are my favorite 3 ones. The Sony, this is a 1-inch sensor, Z90V, the Panasonic VX981, and of course the little tiny CX405 from Sony. I gotta throw that one in there. These are the most fun to use. Now that's my main reason for why I pick things. They're fun to use. These are not fun to use. These are big, heavy, clunky. Now I know if you're an event videographer, you do weddings, you do lectures, you do sports events. Yeah, these are great. Plus they make you look impressive. They make you look more serious. People will not take you seriously if they pay you money and you show up with something like this. Or even something like this. You know, this costs more than this thing does. But this doesn't look as impressive as this. So that's the reason a lot of middle-aged guys like to use these things. And it's usually middle-aged guys that use things like this. It's the younger guys that use stuff like this because they know this outperforms these guys. This is full frame. These are 1-inch. It's not even APS-C or Micro Four Thirds. So anyway, yeah, this is impressive looking. And that's I guess what you get paid for something impressive looking. But it's just for sheer fun and lightweight and quality, these things are more than fine enough. Man, this is overkill right here. But the real reason I like camcorders, I don't like this form factor. This is for picture taking. This design was made for picture taking. This was made for video. There's something to be said about something where it's long and you open it up like that and you do, I don't know, this form factor is just so much more fun to use. I love this. This, for some reason, I get such a kick out of this thing. The way it's long like this and it flips out like that and you hold it in your hand. I don't know, this is fun. This isn't really that much fun. I don't know why. I mean, it's just me. But all right, let's compare the quality of these things. I'm going to show you some shots here. All right, let's start with indoors and low light. Yes, this is indoors. This is my studio. Now, these big clunky camcorders, they suck in 1080. You have to use them in 4K, otherwise the footage is just useless. My little camcorders are great in 1080. You don't even need to use 4K with some of these. All right, let's start with the big, heavy Panasonic X1 in 4K. This is what it looks like in 4K. Here's the JVC 500 in 4K. The color is a little more greenish yellow. The autofocus sucks on both these cameras. All right, let's move up to the Z90V in 4K. This is 4 times smaller than these big ones, and look how much better it is. Great eye tracking. I like this. All right, speaking of Sony, let's compare this with the little tiny CX405 consumer camcorder. This is not 4K, this is just 1080p. Obviously not as clear and sharp, but the color is still good, the exposure is good. This is indoors. This thing holds up pretty good for a little cheap consumer camcorder. All right, let's compare this with the Panasonic VX981 in 4K. This is a little bigger than a CX405, but it does 4K. Now this is all indoors with low light. Let's go outdoors, starting with one of the big ones. Here's the big Panasonic X1 in 4K. Now this is on auto. You'd think this $3,000 camera would know how to focus and expose properly. And yes, I did turn on the ND. It didn't make any difference. All right, so I have to switch to manual and fiddle around with it till I get it right. Okay, looks pretty good now. It's all right. I don't think it's better than the smaller ones. Okay, here's the big, giant, heavy JVC 500 in 4K. Yuck, another big $3,000 one that can't get the exposure right in auto. Got to switch to manual, fiddle with it till I get it right. There we go. It does better out in sunlight than it does indoors. Nice colors, nice and sharp. Except the autofocus sucks, which makes this thing unusable. You can't trust it. That's too bad. That's too big and heavy anyway. Here's the Sony Z90V 1-inch. That's 4 times smaller than the big ones. Looks great. Here's the little tiny cheap CX405 consumer in 1080p. And here's the Panasonic VX981 in 4K, the one that's just a little bit bigger than the CX405. And price-wise, these things are so much better. I like this one here, Panasonic VX981. It shoots 4K, and you can even get some nice blurry backgrounds with this thing. Check out the last video I did. And now for the little tiny CX405. It only does 1080, but look at the footage you can get. Under the right conditions, you can get some nice footage with this thing. Look at this. For a tiny little cheap camcorder, this is pretty good. But if you want 4K, I highly suggest you check out the Panasonic VX981 if you can still get one. It has a bigger sensor than the famous Sony AX43 and 53, and it's considerably less expensive. It has an HDMI out, and yes, it has a mic jack. If you want to know more about the VX981 and the CX405, check out the video I did on that about a year ago. It shows all kinds of test footage. It tells you all the features they have. That's a great video to see. Check that out. I'll put the link down below. And it has a threading on the front, so you can put an ND filter on there and you can get that shallow depth of field. Built-in ND filters is not enough of a reason to get these big clunky camcorders when you can just use a faster shutter speed or just screw an ND filter on the front of the smaller ones. If I want something a little more slicker, professional looking, I will use the Z90V. But there's something else I use also. Now, these things here are for people, like I said, that shoot events all day long, okay? And they need to get paid and they want it to look impressive and they got to shoot all day long. Even this thing will shoot all day long. But I don't do that. That's overkill for me. I only shoot little YouTube videos that are no longer than 10 minutes long. So you know what I use? This is what I use. This right here. This is also a 1-inch sensor. This is a Sony RX100 Mark VII. It has a flip-up screen, it has a nice zoom lens, it shoots 4K, 100 megabytes per second. This has the same sensor that this one does. But look how much smaller it is. I compared this to an XF605 Canon. The 605 can shoot up to 120 frames per second, the RX almost up to 1000 frames per second. Both can output 4K 422, and yes, the RX even has an uncompressed HDMI out. Both have cinema logs for dynamic range. The RX can shoot S-Log 3, S-Log 2, HLG, hybrid log gamma with 14-point dynamic range. The shutter on the big XF605 is a rolling shutter and it only goes up to 1/2000th. The RX shutter can go up to 1/32,000th. Wow, forget ND filters. It has a pop-up viewfinder that's much better quality than any camcorder, and yes, it even has a mic jack. The XF605 is huge and weighs over 4.5 pounds. The RX only weighs 10.5 ounces. That's 300 grams and can literally fit in your pocket. Pissed off a lot of Canon people. Actually, this camera here is comparable, the JVC 500 is comparable to the Canon XF705. And I don't even like this one. I like this, because I don't shoot anything over 5 to 10 minutes. See, the big reason people use these is so they don't overheat. Okay, I get that. Well, these don't overheat either. This one does after a while, but not if you're shooting for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. As a matter of fact, I'm shooting this video right here, right now, with two RX 100 Mark 7s in full 4K, 100 megabytes per second. Look at the quality. Here's what the footage looks like indoors, and here's what the footage looks like outdoors. It outshines even the big, giant, clunky ones. This thing is amazing. The quality of this camera is so good, I always use it only in 1080p. All these YouTube videos you've been watching me on for the last 2 years are shot on an RX 100 in only 1080p. I don't even need to shoot 4K. This is 4K right now. It's overkill, and it will overheat in a little bit, but again, I only make videos that are 5 or 10 minutes long. Here's what I like to use. Little tiny small things that are fun to use. But these to me are dinosaurs. These are ridiculous. Even though, and then every now and then I spend another $6,000 to get another. Just I can't wrap my head around the fact that these are not as good as these. There's just no reason. I shoot professional audio, and professional audio people don't shoot in camera. They shoot separate audio. Now, I get it if you're a wedding person, a lecture person, a sporting person, you want to plug your thing right into these things, but really, nowadays, you don't have to do that anymore. And I don't need physical buttons for everything. I can change the shutter speed, f-stop, and white balance just as fast or even faster with a touchscreen on the smaller cameras. These things are just, they're from the Stone Age. So anyway, I just thought I'd say that. I just love these. I love camcorders. I love camcorders. Little ones. I guess that's my point. I like the little guys. So there you go. So much fun. Photography for me is about fun. Functionality is second, fun comes first. Lightweight, small, and fun, and these things are definitely that. I don't need the best, sharpest quality in the world, as long as it looks cool and decent, and I can tell a story, and that's fine. I like enjoying using something, for me, I think is the most important for me. Push record, and even, you can even like it, you can do the screen on a menu, but yeah, pretty cool. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.